Good evening, everyone. Today we are going to discuss the Norse traditions of the Norse faith, presented by River Pine Kindred. Introduction to the Norse traditions. The Norse belief has been around since the Bronze Age and perhaps the Stone Age. Though the times were different, the traditions of the tribes and belief structure of the gods were still alive in that time period. Even though the languages were different, the gods had different names. However, these gods were still worshipped till this day. People were farmers, warriors, hunters, and gatherers back then compared to modern day. The belief structure back then was very primal. Compared to today, these traditions were based on Scandinavian, Germanic, Anglo-Saxon, Old Saxon, Dane, Old Icelandic, and Pennsylvania Dutch. As time continued, the traditions evolved into what is seen in today's faith. The main views of the faith: gods and goddesses, ancestors, Vetir, known as the land spirits, the people, also known as the folk, the 9 realms, worship of the old ways, and the holidays. The Norse gods: Baldur, Bragi, Forseti, Freyr, Heimdall, Mimir, Loki, Njord, Odin, Thor, Vali, Ve, Mani, Vani, Odor, Vendar, Modi, Magni, and Tyr. The Norse goddesses: Bil, Gedur, Lofn, Signin, Vor, Bela, Gina, Nana, Sifron, Heresa, Nerthris, Snorta, Freya, Hilin, Noran, Suna, Frigg, Hasna, Run, Sin, Fola, Imar, Runder, Pordr, Girfan, Idun, Saga, Pogradr, Holga, Brunder, Gur Simon, Impla, Sig, and Var. Our ancestors. In the Norse belief, ancestor veneration is important to the Norse faith. The people believed the blood of our ancestors run through our veins. They believed a person should live by their deeds and bring honor to the family's name. Norse people honored their ancestors in their home, the hearth, by giving offerings to their ancestors daily on holidays and rites. Many people talked on the ancestral burial mounds because in the Old Norse, the Norse people buried their families next to one another and over time created a large burial mound over the centuries on the family's land. The Vetir, known as the land spirits. The Vetir are important in the Norse faith. The Norse people believed in the supernatural and that the land spirits lived all in nature. People believed in giving offerings to the land spirits in hopes for exchange for good crops, protection from evil spirits, and famines. They also believed that the oldest trees and plants were sacred. People gave offerings to trees and plants. The Norse people of the faith. The people also believed in a concept called weird. That weird connected with their deeds in life, which connected them to the gods and goddesses, ancestors, and the land spirits. Warriors believed in being a warrior was the greatest honor to the gods and ancestors. They believed Valhalla is a place where honorable warriors who die in battle go. People believed that in the afterlife they would be with their loved ones and once again and sit at the table with their ancestors in the afterlife. People who did terrible things in life went to a place in Niflheim. Worlds of Yggdrasil: Asgard, Effelheim, Helheim, Jotunheim, Midgard, Muspelheim, Niflheim, Svinvalheim, and Vanaheim. Rituals: every ritual has a purpose due to the reason of the season. Ritual leaders trained for years before doing rites. They were elected the roles of Godor. A priest was called a Gothi. A priestess was called a Githia in the faith. And Godors is plural, meaning more than one priest. For the rites, only the best items were utilized: drinks, food, jewelry, and ritual items. After the rite, the community would have Sble. Bloats were done 2 to 4 times a year. Household worship was a daily practice. Sble. In Sble, a horn bearer, a woman, would speak at the Sble. She oversaw making and pouring mead. The horn bearer would feign to the gods at Sble. She spoke over the horn, asking, "Let no man in the hall speak no lies nor ill intentions during Sble." The horn symbolized the well of weird. Therefore, in ritual or at Sble, all people spoke over the horn to pour their weird into the well of weird of that horn. The horn was shared 3 times at Sble for oathing, boasting, and toasting. Norse Holidays. We begin with February with charming of the plow. People will come together and till the soil and give offerings to the gods, goddesses, the ancestors, and the land spirits in return for steadfast for crops of plenty. In March, we have Sble, where you honor your female ancestors, the female land spirits, and the goddesses. In April, we have Sigrblot, also known as Victory Bloat. People would come together, as well as people of the war band, and celebrate the turning of spring. And they would prepare on their journeys to travel and to do many other great things. June is midsummer, and midsummer is where we have the first of the harvest, and people will give offerings of those harvests to the gods, the ancestors, and the land spirits, and celebrate at this time of crops of plenty. In October, we have Winter's Night, which is also known as Ancestor veneration, and people would celebrate their ancestors because if it was not for them, we would not be where we are today, because they are blood of our blood and bone of our bone. And this is why we honor them on Winter's Night. In November, we have Afterlife, which is a holiday of the elves. And people celebrate this holiday differently depending on the person. Some people believe that the elves are connected to the land spirits in some supernatural way, and they give offerings to them in a very unique way. In December, we have Mother's Night, which falls on December 20th. Most people celebrate by honoring their female ancestors, as well as the goddesses on this day. Some people give offerings on their altars, where others go outside to their Ve to give those offerings. Or if you are lucky, you'll have an ancestral mound where your ancestors are to give that offering on Mother's Night. And for Yule, some people celebrate Yule in December, where others celebrate Yule in January. And Yule is a time of coming together of family and community and weaving frith, and a time of reflection of that year to see the things that developed and the changes that unfolded to what happened that year. And people feast and honor their ancestors and the gods, and it's just a time of being merry and grateful for what you have in this world. Most of these holidays were celebrated on the full moon or around the full moon. Thank you for listening to this introduction to the Norse traditions.